The International Federation of Rural Surgeons conducted a series of Zoom lectures for rural surgeons working in remote areas. And these are summaries of those presentations. If you're interested, you can go to the different video which gives the full lecture and have a better understanding. So today we're going to discuss about what is called double J stenting. This is a tube which is placed from the kidney to the ureter and is called double J or DJ because it has two J's in it, one straight J and a mirror image or inverted J. And also the important is that it has a memory so that it coils in the kidney and in the bladder, which prevents DJ stent from slipping. It is also called pigtail stenting or JJ stent. And the sizes vary from 24 to 30 centimeter. You can choose the size depending on the size of the patient. And generally the stents are kept for about 3 months. And depending on why it's needed. But recently the new type of stents which can be kept for about 6 months. And why do we do the stenting? First reason for doing it is to keep the ureter open all the time. Normally ureter is a closed tube. The kidney comes down in peristalsis once in 2 or 3 minutes. But then once you have a DJ stent, the ureter is open all the time. And then it also prevents back pressure changes because it has multiple holes all over the place. So if there is a block, there is enough place for the urine to come down. And then the important reason why we do it is that it helps the ureter dilate to about 2.5 to 3 times the original size. So normally if you look at the procedure, the guide wire just managed to pass the ureter. But once you leave the stent for about 6 weeks, it is so large the ureterovenoscope can be comfortably passed through it. And another reason why we leave a stent is that to prevent stricture formation after any procedures, or if there is any injury or inflammation or stone. And what else does it do? It can help flush the stone out because the motion which is created by walking and running and so on causes these motions in the kidney which can dislodge the stone even if it is in the lower calyx and make it come out. And because it's a foreign body, the body tries to push it out. So along with it, the stones also will come out. And what are the common indications for putting in a DJ stent? So normally it's done for small and medium stones because once you leave the stent in the kidney, these stones will come out by itself because the ureter dilates and the kidney is trying to push the stone out. And if the stone is larger, maybe more than 1.5 centimeters and so, this is done as a stage 1 procedure for doing a ureterovenoscopy to reach the kidney. And they can use a lithoclast to break the stones. And of course, in some surgeries, especially retroperitoneal surgeries or Werthin cystectomy, we need to place a stent earlier to prevent both injury during the surgery and fibrosis during the healing time. And the common indication that we do is for after doing any surgery. So what we have been doing for many years is we go through the normal urinary passage and break even very large stones. It takes multiple sittings. And each time we leave a stent to facilitate the broken fragments to come down. And if you don't leave it, if you can have a look at the X-ray, you'll see that what is called a Steinstrasse in Latin, which means stone street, forms because of the stone broken pieces come and line up in the ureter. And if there is no stent, it will cause a lot of problem because it can block the kidney, and normal pressure in the kidney is only about 10 to 15 centimeters of water. Anything more than that leads to damage of the nephrons in the kidney. And also if there is, if we need drainage, like if there is a pus, then we need a put in a stent. And after surgery, to prevent stricture, we also use the stent. And always we use prophylactic antibiotics, both before the procedure, and also we give some antibiotic to cover the period after the, whenever the stent is in situ or in the body, because that time only one bedtime dose is sufficient. But daytime people will keep passing urine, especially they may pass more frequently because of the stent. And you need to have a proper preparation as for any major surgery, clean and drape, put the patient in lithotomy, and all the basics should be remembered, that the most of the bacteria which can cause infection are fecal origin. So the moment you touch the gauze piece, it touches the anus, you discard it, and so on. Also, you need to remember that the drapes, when they are wet, they're not sterile anymore. So you need to use waterproof drapes and so on. And most of the time in women, it's possible to do the stenting under local anesthesia. But for men, it is, unless surgeon is very experienced, is preferred to do it under anesthesia. And how do you do it? We showed how to do a cystoscopy in the last class. You need to follow the principles, that you need to make sure that if you're using a normal telescope and camera, you hold the camera with the left hand in 12 o'clock position, and pass enough, pass under vision, a well lubricated scope. And you need to make sure that you follow the curves, because we are doing the rigid scopy. And the low cost laptop cystoscope that we have devised can be easily used for this. So when you're using the laptop cystoscope, you need to remember it is 0 degrees, and it takes a little while for it to focus because autofocus. So you need to very gently do the procedure and be very careful near the sphincter or the membranous urethra. And again, the first thing you do is, before starting the procedure, have a systematic inspection of the urinary bladder so that you don't miss out any other related pathology. So then the first step you need to do is to locate the ureteric orifice. How you do is that from the bladder neck, you keep looking inside. Then you will come across what is called the interureteric ridge or the Mercius bar. So if you trace it laterally, then you reach the ureteric orifice. And sometimes it might be difficult to visualize because it will be collapsed. So then you need to wait there till peristalsis brings a little bit of urine and the orifice opens. And you have to remember that any injury can cause bleeding even if you touch with the the guide wire or anything, even the scope. It can damage the ureter. And if there are stones of any pathology, the orifice is often inflamed. So minimal touch there can cause a significant problem. So unless you are absolutely sure it is the orifice, you should not touch the orifice. Okay. Then the next step to do is that you need to pass the guide wire. So normally what we do is to make the guide wire stiff. I mean, can either traditional method is to you pass open-ended catheter and pass a guide wire through it. So what we use is the pusher, which is used for pushing the stent. And the guide wire protrudes about a centimeter beyond it. And then once you find the orifice, you need to push the guide wire gently into the orifice. Even in the picture, what you will notice is that the directions are a little different because the ureter comes laterally like this, while the urethra comes like this. So you need to align the scope and the orifice and the guide wire such that it is as straight as possible. And any pressure, even if it is a hydrophilic guide wire or can still damage and cause injury. And if you're using a regular guide wire, you have to make sure that it is the soft end which is at the front. And then once you pass the guide wire, then you withdraw the pusher. So that what you need to do is to push the guide wire in and pull the pusher out. Keep pushing, pulling, so that the tip does not move. So then you take out the pusher, then push the stent over the guide wire, and then push it inside with the pusher. The video will demonstrate how it is done. There may be problems if there is a vesico-uteric junction calculus. Here then the opening is not in the correct place. Sometimes we can go face towards the head. So it makes it more difficult. So then what you need to do is keep pressing the orifice down to try and make it straight. Or use a hydrophilic guide wire with gentle pressure. But if it's not possible, then don't cause damage, just wait and let the urologist do it. And once you finish the stenting, it's important to make sure that the patient drinks enough water. This is necessary for many reasons. One is that you don't want bacteria and other material encrusting the stent. So if you have enough diuresis, it keeps washing it away. Again, the diuresis helps in pushing the stone out. And you have to explain to the patient that there may be some reflux because the stent keeps the orifice open, and some patients may be quite sensitive to it. But whatever is that, the most important instruction is that they need to take enough water to pass about 3.5 liters of urine in a day. And then we also give antibiotics. One bedtime dose of ciproflox, amoxicillin, or augmentin, or any of them is Septran, or any of them should be okay. And again, it depends on the local antibiotic sensitivity. Then we give alpha blockers, which will dilate the ureter. And this helps in the stone coming out and also the ureter dilating. We also give sodium bicarbonate or anything to alkalinize the urine so that encrustations don't form. Is there anything new with the stenting? Stenting has been there for a long time. So we briefly mentioned that the recent stents are made of carbourethane instead of polyurethane. So this makes them last a little longer. So instead of 3 months, you can keep it for up to 6 months. Then people have tried coating the stents with heparin, hydrogen, and silver nitrate. And they also, like cardiac stents, they have drug-eluting stents. And some people have even are working on biodegradable stents. But these are all in experimental stages, except probably the carbourethane stents, which are easily available now. So this is a procedure which, if you learn, would help you to treat most of the patients. So if you're working in a rural area, first you need to learn how to do a cystometrogram or CMG. That'll help you to find out exactly what the problem is, along with the cystoscopy diagnosis. And only treatment, this thing, like last class we saw, if there is we can give a simple things like bladder wash, and if there are small tumors, you can vaporize and so on. But the most important skill that you need to learn is how to do a DJ stenting. This will help you to treat most of the stones. And if you treat it early, it won't go to a stage where you need bigger procedures. Any stones between 6 millimeters to 1.2 centimeters can come out most of the time just with the DJ stenting alone. So proper medication, proper advice, and DJ stenting is one of the most useful skills that you can learn. Thank you.